And this is Rohan, and yeah, Direct definitely gave us a lot to chew on in terms of games, especially RPGs. I'm of course really looking forward to, what's gonna happen with Xenoblade, especially that new game Xenoblade Genesis. And then before that, we also had obviously Summer Game Fest and the Xbox Showcase, showing us obviously some other great games too, including obviously Persona, some of a revival gameplay for the first time, and then a teaser for Persona 6. But of course, yeah, the one I really wanted to talk about today though is of course Fire Emblem Fortune Sleeve. There's a lot of reasons to do this. Obviously, yeah, it's been 8 months since it first got revealed, and then after that we basically knew like nothing. So yeah. And of course, yeah, I did do a reaction video to that basically. That's kind of what it was. I didn't really go into depth that much. I just kind of gave my quick thoughts on the reveals. So yeah. But here though, yeah, I'm thinking, yeah, we're gonna go a lot more in depth now because yeah, we got a lot to talk about. That trailer gave us a lot to chew on, and then there's also, other things too. Of course, stuff I didn't mention in the first trailer, screenshots that went in the direct, I believe. There's a lot to chew on with from Fortune Sleeve, obviously. So yeah, there's gonna be a lot to talk about. So yeah, how about we get stuck in right now? So basically, how this is gonna go is that I basically note down, like anything that I thought was worth talking about, or like stuff I noticed in the trailers and other material I was able to get my hands on. That's how I'm basically gonna go for it. I'm gonna go through my notes, and then yeah, I note them in different categories. I'm gonna be going down the categories, so yeah, things are gonna be all over the place as a result. But yeah. This kind of made it a lot easier to get, all the information. So, yeah. Anyway, let's start. We're gonna have the world and the story. So the game takes place in Dagdar's capital, Daxian. And yeah, Dagdar's not a new place. It's a part of Poland, obviously. It's where Shamir was born in Three Houses. She would leave after that because there was like a battle with the Empire and Richard involved as well. Shamir would lose a lover in that battle, and then after that she would wander. She'd end up in an abyss apparently, and then after that, that's how she became a knight in Ceres. So yeah, and of course, yeah, considering the time for this game, yeah, this fact is probably not gonna matter at all unless there is a character that's related to Shamir in some way, which I highly doubt. So yeah. So again, while there's like a new place, or is a place that was mentioned. The thing about Dagda though is that you never went there in Three Houses. It was only spoken of in like sports and background material. So yeah, it had like no relevance at all. So for all intents and purposes, this is gonna be like an entirely new place. So yeah, in terms of like setting and stuff like that, I can definitely tell that with like how this game feels as well. Like yeah, that definitely feels like that gladiator Roman feel that we felt in the first trailer with some like the classes on offer and stuff like that. So yeah. Anyway, something else that's mentioned about this place is apparently it's a land ruled by the gods, which that's interesting to think about considering where this game could take place, which I'll talk about. But it does seem like, yeah, again, the gods are still pretty relevant in this place, which again could still be the case in Poland, but it kind of depends on the route, obviously. Like, the other god probably made it like all the gods disappeared from Poland. She did kill Ray, obviously, in Crimson Flower, so the others probably not. I mean, some of Snow could, because again, basically Fire becomes like a god, or I wouldn't say god, obviously. They have Power Sophus, obviously, as well, so so again, they basically just took Rhea's place in that game after the events of that game. So yeah, again, that could be a way for the gods to be still be around. But yeah, but again, we'll see what this means. We'll see what this means. It probably will tie into character motivation and stuff like that as well. So we shall see. Oh yeah, I'm also gonna because I just mentioned it there, yeah, I'm going to be spoiling a lot about Three Houses, so yeah, probably a bit too late for that, but that's okay. Anyway, speaking of, yeah, so this game takes place info them, but in a different era. And yeah, we might actually know when it takes place. That's thanks to some gameplay showing off the calendar. So yeah, on the bottom right screen, it was some gameplay of Kai walking up to train, do like a training battle, I guess you could say. At the bottom left, it shows that the year is 1449, which is roughly around 270 years after Three Houses. Three Houses, I believe, starts in Imperial Year 1185, and then of course the time skip, it'll be like around 1190 then. So again, that would suggest that, yeah, this game takes place like a few hundred years after Three Houses, right? The thing is, though, is that we can't be 100% sure about that, because this game could be using a completely different calendar. Maybe they don't care about the Imperial calendar in Dacta, so that's something else to think about. But again, the fact that, you know, it is showing a number after Three Houses, that definitely does feel like, yeah, again, this game probably will take place, you know. There's a lot of factors, I should say, too, that make you think it will take place after Three Houses, especially concerning surface and evolvement. So again, it's logical, but we'll have to wait and see if this is correct, basically. If this is not just some other calendar. So yeah. Anyway, so the game takes place during the Heroic Games, led by the Divine Throne and grant a wish to the victor. Yeah, this is something we learned about in both trailers, actually. Divine Summoner, you get to like know nothing about, but I feel like he could be like the rare of this game, I guess you could say, like someone who, you know, watches over a lot, and then probably springs to action after, you know, the game's finished, because yeah, I don't think the game's finishing is going to be the end of the game, as I'll talk about later. I do think that, yeah, it'll be the catalyst for the time skip of this game, so we'll see about that. Again, yeah, we know nothing about the Divine Sovereign, other than the fact that, yeah, they're probably going to be one of the most important characters in the overall plot, so yeah. Again, like I said, we don't really have much to go off of. His design is pretty interesting, I must admit. Now, that game probably takes place across the Dacton Empire. This might be reinforced by how big the world map is, which we'll talk about later. But yeah, that's kind of the vibe I get. It feels like, you know, Dacton's actually a decently large place, so we could definitely, you know, battle all around it. But there's of course the fact that, yeah, if things get large scale in the next part of the game, that could very well involve other places like maybe Bridget, maybe mainland Fodland. Hard to say, but we'll see when that happens. But it would be very interesting. Again, if they do want to tie this game back to the Free Housing, I definitely see them wanting to do something like that. So yeah. Anyway. So yeah, we also got a look at what the villains could be like. One of the villains looks like a Gremlin to me with the clothes they wear. So that could be a returning class. And they seem to have undead enemies on this side, which was not a thing in Three Houses. I mean, actually it kind of was, but they weren't like the main enemy of the game, like the Corrupted or the Risen were, so yeah. Like, sometimes you feel like phantom enemies in Three Houses, but that was very rare, and like I said, it didn't happen that much. But yeah. So yeah, again, so saying undead enemies in the game, I guess that makes sense. Fireman likes to do this so that, yeah, you're not just fighting monsters as undead enemies, you can also fight, you know, actual classes, stuff like that, so yeah, I guess that kind of makes sense. And then of course, yeah, that feature of the Verd 2 shows like a lot of hideous looking monsters as well, so it's safe to say that, you know, monster type enemies will be in this game. And considering that Gambits and Batans are also in this game too, expect to see, you know, the multiple health bars, multiple barriers to break monsters make appearances as well. So yeah, that's the first section. We talked about the world and the story. So let's move on to the characters now. We're going to start off with not one of the four main characters. We're going to be talking about Ishmael. So Ishmael is the avatar character. And yeah, you can kind of tell that because, yeah, the front and center of the box of the game, and there's two of them as well. They have two genders, much like Viola, much like Corin, much like Robin, much like Elias. So yeah. But yeah, they have a very interesting design though. They wield a lance, they look angelic, so that made me think that yeah, they could be an Aegis Surface. And yeah, Surface does mention them, so I can definitely see the two being linked in some way. The male one also looks a lot like Violet to me, which could mean something. Of course, yeah, the fact that, you know, Surface basically became one with Violet after, you know, the Dark Souls, the Horus and stuff. So yeah, maybe, you know, Surface sent this Byleth-like person to help out in the conflict. Again, it's hard to say, because again, Surface's ambitions are very hard to tell at this point, but yeah. So, of course, one thing about this avatar is the fact that you don't control them in the overworld. This is something I'll mention again later. All the overworld gameplay we got is with the four main characters, so what's that all about? Again, one idea is that Ishmael is like, you know, they guide the main character you pick, potentially. I don't know how they would do this. Could they also be inside of your head, like Surface as well? It's hard to say that. At this point in time, so yeah, again, it's really mysterious what these two are about, but they are like a connection to either Milo or something like that. I can definitely see that, so yeah. Then after that though, there's a cutscene that shows them saving a character from a monster by coming down from the sky. I can see that being like early on in the game potentially when they first get introduced or something like that. Does depend on when, you know, the villains will make their stand. It doesn't necessarily have to be early on, because early on in the game you probably fight bandits and other people in the heroic games, like chump people basically, so again, that's kind of the weird thing, because the thing about avatars at this point is that they've always been at the start of the game and they always follow the plot. So in this game it doesn't feel like that, unless of course, yeah, you do play as Ishmael first, and then that's when it leads on to, you know, picking the four protagonists. So yeah. So again, like I said, yeah, it's hard to tell what they want to do with this avatar, but yeah, I do really feel like it's going to be an avatar. Again, Three Houses had Byleth. People somehow ended up liking Byleth, even though they don't really have a character, so yeah. That's another thing, I guess, too, that's speculative as well. I don't think Ishmael's going to be that much of a character. I'll be surprised if they, you know, talk as well. It does feel like, again, they're like a guide. They're not really like, you know, someone who leads, you know, or is like a big character in their own right. I feel like, yeah, they're mainly going to be pushing the four protects. Unless, yeah, there is a route with like the Divine Sovereign, which is like Silver Snow, which I have my doubts of, so yeah. So there's that. And yeah, going back to, you know, the Surface connection, I think in the trailer it seems like Surface seems to call Ishmael the Promised One. Doesn't necessarily mean that she's talking about Ishmael though. It could very well be talking about one of the main protagonists as well, so yeah. But again, like I said, I don't really know what to think of Surface, but we'll talk about her in a bit. Anyway, let's actually move on to our main characters now. So we got Kai first, the Wind of Riberia. Riberia is where he comes from. It's like a small village in Dakar, I believe. I mean, not necessarily. It could be somewhere else, but that's the vibe I get. So anyway, his motivation is he's determined to win the same as a prison father. Well, this is a foreign game, so Dad's probably gonna die at some point. So yeah, there's also more on that later. But anyway, so yeah. Another thing I noticed too is that the girl with glasses in the first trailer accompanies him, so yeah, most likely she's a playable character or playable unit alongside Kai's group. Again, I do think that, yeah, there's going to be units that are exclusive. I wouldn't say exclusive, but like the houses and free houses, there's going to be characters who are tied to a lord. You know, you obviously got your Black Eagles, Gondor, and Blue Lions. I mean, that's still going to be a thing in this game. We'll talk more about what this could mean in a bit, but yeah. So here's something weird. So, in promotional artwork, like on the box art of the game too, Kai is shown with yellow eyes. But a lot of the gameplay we see, and some screenshots as well, he has red eyes for some reason. I don't know what that's about, but it could very well be down to the fact that he actually has two crests. So, yeah. But anyway, after that, yeah, we could talk about his blaze art. So Blaze Art's a new mechanic, which I'll talk about later. It's kind of like the super attack that the main characters have. And in Kai's case, he shoots out a long-range dark attack, similar to an engage attack. And yeah, like an engage attack, he can kill multiple enemies. So that's interesting. Again, why does he have dark powers? Well, yeah, we might be talking about it here. The thing about him, he has 2 crests, and if you examine gameplay footage of him in his new class, you actually tell what the crests are. They're the Orban crest and the Gautier crest. Orban was the crest that Yuri has, and Gautier is obviously the crest that Sylvain has. Now, there's some interesting things about this. The fact that, Orban is tied to Fedes of Jerome, which gives Kanto alongside movement. Gautier is lance based, considering that the Lance of Ruin. And Kai is a lance specialist, at least that's what, his class would suggest, so yeah. So it's kind of interesting that, again, the crests kind of tie into what Kai is strong at, so again, that's a bit interesting to think about. Anyway, of course, yeah, the fact that he has 2 crests though. So the 2 characters we know had 2 crests in 3 houses, at least to my knowledge, are Irogod and Lysithia, and it does sound like both were experimented on by the Agarthans. Of course, Irogod, and then Lysithia. So the interesting thing about Lysithia is obviously she was one of the early experiments of this, so this reduced the lifespan, so yeah. So again, could the, these dark powers be a result of, Kai? I could also talk about Epaminondas, but I'm not going to because I don't know anything about him, and also it's very contradictory on his name, so yeah, but anyway. I doubt they're going to be a thing in this, but anyway. So again, Kai being, experimented by Agarthans, again, I could definitely see that, but again, it kind of depends on if the Agarthans are still going to be the main villains. I would probably not mind if they're not, because they're kind of dumb, to be honest. Not great villains, to be honest, so yeah. In 3 houses. So, again, we'll see what this whole 2 crest thing is about. Again, this game takes place after 3 houses, and one thing that, gets mentioned is that Hanuman kind of changes how the crest system works with some of his endings. So who knows, maybe this is a more natural thing. We'll see. It kind of depends. Again, I could definitely, the fact that, he changes eye color and he has a very strange looking laser attack, I do think that has to be, I feel like there has to be some tying to that 2 crest that he has. Anyway. And one last thing about the red eyes look that he has, it kind of makes him look like Happy, and Happy also has an interesting pass too. Of course, he can actually summon monsters by sighing. So yeah, one of those a connection. Of course, Happy doesn't come from this place. She comes from like a remote village on mainland Portland. She also has a rare crest herself. Again, I don't really think that Kai could be related to Happy, but it'd be interesting if that was the case. So yeah. As that, yeah, both characters do kind of remind me a little bit of each other, so yeah, in that regard. Anyway, that was a lot to talk about one character, so yeah, let's go on to the next. Dietrich. So Dietrich is a swordsman hunting strong foes, and yeah, he's a hero's rat. This is the Answerer, it's a sword. And yeah, if you look very closely at the crest stones it has, you can see the crest of the means, so that probably means that Dietrich has this crest. This is the crest that Mercedes and Yuritsa have in 3 houses, obviously. So yeah, the thing about this is that the connection goes even further beyond. It seems very likely that Dietrich has a personal skill called Murderous Intent. This is also the personal skill of the Death Knight, aka Yuritsa. So yeah, it definitely feels like they want to make Dietrich here related to Mercedes and Yuritsa. Again, it is saying Tasteways art that must mean those 2 are ancestors. But of course, if it takes place like somewhere else, then the connection could be a lot of things. And yeah, of course, Dietrich doesn't have to be a direct ancestor of these 2 as well. He could be of like a branch family as well. And yeah, I can definitely see why they would do this, because the thing about Mercedes and Yuritsa, they have some of the messiest backstory in 3 houses. Not in like bad way, but like in a lore kind of way. So yeah, it kind of makes sense that we have a main character who could be tied to this. Maybe give this more depth potentially as well. So yeah, so that's interesting to think about. But anyway. So his Blazer, I wasn't really able to get a good look, but it does seem like it allows it to maybe warp and potentially attack as well. I can also see it seeing a combat art for his weapon as well. That's kind of what the first sphere seems to suggest as well. But again, it makes sense. There was obviously Warp Ragnarok in Engage, and yeah, I do see Dietrich maybe having something similar to that. And of course, that's pretty decent for him as well. And of course, yeah, one thing about him, and I think it's shown in a screenshot as well, it does seem like he came from Portland to here to compete in the games, it feels like, so yeah. I mean, that's the thing about Dietrich. I think if you pick him, it's kind of like the Portland appreciation route, I guess you could say, because he also teams up with another character with the crest of a beloved character, so yeah. So I can definitely see that. It definitely sounds like a very interesting route because of that, so yeah. Anyway, all of that though, we got Theodora, the next main character. She's the Queen of Samaras. She's a queen seeking to fulfill the long-held dream. We don't really know what that is, but it's probably going to be tied into her wish. There is something kind of that dropped out of nowhere. In a cutscene, it shows that she says in the cutscene that her father was murdered by the people she's fighting, which that's a thing to drop in a random cutscene. Possibly early on in the game as well, so yeah, maybe there's some motivation behind that. Also does mean that, she, can state that she's a fire protector, so that is already dead, so yeah. Anyway, her blaze art's on the funnier ones because it allows her to throw stuff, so yeah, she chucks like rocks in one scene, and I think in a cutscene she throws like a wheel of a chariot, so yeah, seems like a pretty funny blaze art, probably similar to how Kai's work. But it's long distance and you can kill like multiple enemies with it, so yeah. Anyway, so another thing I noticed with obviously is that some cutscenes show without her crown. This is also kind of tied to gameplay too. Some classes also don't give her a crown either, like the Wyvern Rider we see her certifying for. In her Noble class, which is probably going to be the first tier class, like in Three Houses, she still has the crown, and actually a personal weapon too, I believe, as well. So yeah. So again, could be just based on what class she is currently, but again, it's interesting to think that yeah, she'd hide the crown if she needs to like disguise herself. That's interesting to think about. But anyway, I am worried about one thing about her. I feel like she could be like this ambitious kind of ruler that may want to start a war. Again, I do feel like these four protagonists are gonna fight at some point. That's kind of the vibe I'm getting, but again, it doesn't have to be that way, of course. Maybe they all want to fight against the antagonist of the game, but yeah, I do think that out of all these four, she's the one who's probably gonna start the war like Unigod was. And we know how that ends, so yeah. Then up last, we have Leda. So she's a musician, and she's singing about revenge. So yeah, when we first saw her, I did suspect that she could be like the dancer of the game, but as it turns out, she's a musician, and she doesn't use her songs to help people move again. She uses them for other things too. It's tied to her blaze art, obviously. She can use songs for various effects, and yeah, one of the effects we saw in the first trailer was summoning a demonic beast. So that's interesting. Again, could tie into potentially what crest she has as well, which I don't think we got a good look on. But anyway. So one funny screenshot you can find on the official website is that she says she wants to choke the light out of Lekna if they go off the beaten path. So that's a pretty funny piece of dialogue. Can't wait to see the voice acting for that, but yeah. Also definitely shows that yeah, there's some hostility towards Lekna as well. Then after that, that's all I could note down about her. She's definitely the most mysterious of the four so far. The one we don't know that much about. But I think once we do start seeing some gameplay, maybe we can get some ideas. Again, I do think she's probably going to have a crest of some kind. And that crest is probably the reason why she's able to, some monsters, stuff like that. Considering, happy, it could very well be the Tiamophis crest. As well, that could be something she has, so yeah. it could explain the fact that, she's able to summon monsters with song. So yeah. So definitely a very interesting character right there. And definitely seems very emotional too with, that Laya Darla in the screenshots. So yeah. So that's all our main characters. Now let's talk about other characters. So we got Nine now. All we see about her is that she gets recruited in the second trailer. So this obviously gets you thinking, how are we going to recruit people? So of course in free houses, you need to meet rank requirements. Ranks are still in this game, and then obviously have certain stats. I assume that if Ishmael does need to meet the stat thresholds, then it's probably the main lord who has to. I've never seen it work in other ways. Of course, support raising could also do it as well, but considering that, I don't think the main 4 characters are able to support everyone, and maybe Ishmael be involved with that too. So yeah. Of course, there could be something very simple. Maybe you just have to complete a side quest or something like that, and then yeah, you'll be able to recruit them or something like that. I will say Nine does look pretty interesting with that green hair and that hair accessory she has, so yeah. But yeah, we don't really know if she's already tied to one of the 4 main characters either, so yeah. So that's another thing too. And after that, we got Alexandra, who has a meal with Kai. That's really all we got with her, so most likely, yeah, she might be in Kai's group automatically. Then we got one of the more interesting ones here, Ursula. So Ursula is seen fighting as a hunter with a longbow. And yeah, another thing to note too is that she's fighting alongside Dietrich in the battle. So yeah, probably means that she's a part of Dietrich's squad. And yeah, if you look at the gameplay at the bottom left, you can see the skills, and one of the skills shows the crest of the beast. So yeah, this seems to suggest that, she has that crest. And considering the blue hair she also has, definitely seems like she's related to Marianne in some way. This is what I mean, she's one of my favorite characters. Hard to say about that, considering that Marianne was my favorite Yaz character, but yeah. It's interesting though. Because yeah, she definitely seems very different from pre-turn skip Marianne as well. So yeah. So we'll see about that. Definitely a character that I'll keep my eye on though. And definitely one reason to maybe pick Dietrich as well. But anyway. After that we got we got Sirocco. He's likely a favorite leader just by his design. I don't think we really get a confirmation. And yeah, we see him using magic, which we'll talk about later. So he's probably going to be a mage. Well, technically Shaman. That's the class he was shown with. We'll see. Again, we'll talk about how magic could potentially work later as well. But for right now, yeah, yeah, he just seems like a cool-looking mage. So yeah. After that, we can talk about Anna actually. So Anna's design has been revealed. I'm not so sure where exactly. Maybe on Twitter or something like that, or X or whatever it's called now. Sangara design is actually really cool looking to be honest. It looks very different from other Annas, and considering the last couple of games, this Anna's probably going to be playable. So again, might need to recruit her at some point. I don't know if she'll be DLC or not. Could be the case. It's hard to say, but yeah, interested to see her back in this one, obviously. Then after that we got Ultand. So Ultand is only shown engaging in Mountain Trade with Kai. And this means they could be, a senior figure or something like that, or a part of Kai's group. It's kind of hard to tell. But yeah, she's also seen using that new class, which we'll talk about later. And finally we also got the character that I know basically nothing about, Sophus. So of course she's grown up in this game. This game takes place after 3 houses. It's safe to say that she grew up. But of course, the thing about that is, though, how on earth does this happen? Like, how does a goddess need to age like that, And also, how does she do it too? Because again, she did kind of, combine with Violet in 3 houses. Did that, wear off or something like that? Is this game taking place after Crimson Flower, where, Sophus leaves Violet after Rhea dies or something like that? Yeah, there's a lot. I don't really know what to think, obviously, like I said, so yeah. I really don't know what to think about Sophus, to be honest, but yeah. The trailer does give us some striking things about her, though. Her dialogue seems to suggest that she's confronting someone who has upheaved the world. I think she also refers to the person as the darkest dark or something like that. And it could be, the person she's confronting in the cutscene. It could very well not be as well. That's obviously something to think about as well. Of course, why would this person, come to them in, Surface's place as well? Hard to say. And can Surface just, enter people's minds on their own now or something like that? Of course, that's another thing too. Again, there's a lot of mysteries about Surface. One thing that we can see though, she wields an axe in the cutscene as well. And yeah, if you look at the axe carefully, you'll realize that's hooked there. It looks like Three Houses version of the weapon. So that's kind of interesting. It was kind of a special weapon in Three Houses. I guess it kind of makes a lot of sense for Surface to have it. But yeah, like I said though, yeah, she's a mystery to me. I really don't know what to think about her. Again, I know she's going to be important because, of course, the fact they showed her in both trailers has to suggest something like that. Again, like I was talking about before, again, she does seem to be tied to Ishmael, so that probably has something to do with it, obviously. So yeah, again, like I said, there's a lot. But again, I do think, and like I said, yeah, the fact that, she is older and we do see, the kinda, I do think, yeah, I think that does give good evidence of, yeah, this probably does take place at the Three Houses. Again, that's interesting to think about too. I could never see it taking place before, and the main reason why is because of Surface as well. Like, she's older now. Maybe, the battle against her pro-bandit nemesis weakened her, so she become, her younger self. Or something like that. They also say, this place is ruled by the gods as well. Maybe the gods are more active in the past as well. There's some evidence there, but I think it's more likely with some of the evidence we see that, yeah, this game takes place out of Three Houses. But yeah, again, Surface though is still a mystery no matter what. So yeah, I don't even know if she's going to be playable too, but I feel like with Three Houses basically doing like nothing with Surface outside of, the transformation, I can definitely see maybe Surface having a bit more prevalence in this game. So yeah, anyway. And that's all the characters talked about now, so let's talk about some gameplay. So yeah. So we got some like older names of classes. I think the main ones are Hunter and Shaman. We see Ursa and Leda as a Hunter. Hunter could be the beginner archer class in this game, and then Fighter could, focus just on axe and brawling. That's an option. Well, of course, Hunter could also be, the archer replacer. That's another thing too. But yeah, we haven't seen Hunters since the Arcanea games. So yeah, they evolved or they promoted the horse. Then yeah, Soraka's a shaman. That's a class we haven't seen since GBA. It's the Dark Mage of that game. So yeah, it's probably, maybe it's just a fancy name for a mage. Maybe it's the beginner class mage replacing monk. It could be one of those things. And then of course there's Myrmidon for Dietrich. Of course, sword class could be the beginner sword class, just like it was in Three Houses. So yeah, but yeah, Myrmidons went in engage, which is kind of interesting. We just got sword fighters, so it's kind of cool to see the name come back. Anyway, there's a lot of new mounted classes. Of course, one of the main ones is the Flying Orneus Rider. This is the class that Kai is shown using. It raises his flying and riding rank too, which is kind of weird because, it suggests that, yeah, this class can fly. In fact, it is shown, jumping over a ledge in some gameplay that was posted after the trailer got released. So again, it's kind of weird that it's like both flying and riding. I assume the idea is that, it still rides on the ground, but it can still, hop over ledges like that. It can still, hop over maybe difficult terrain, maybe at some penalty cost, but of course since it's not actually in the sky, it's not actually with the bows. So yeah, so that's interesting to think about. It also makes me think, will this time be in this game as well? Well, we'll break one class before fine with it, but anyway. Yeah. So that's something else interesting. And also, another thing about this class, it seems to be proficient in launches as well. So for Kai, who seems to also be proficient in launches in this game. So yeah. Then we also see some new classes. In the first show, we got to see the Charioteer. Could be like an armored cavalry class potentially. Maybe one you can get early on, other than, Great Knight. And then also we see an elephant boss. A dude riding an elephant. I've seen an elephant Rider as like a GBA hack or something like that. He used like lances and bows and stuff like that. It's pretty neat. But yeah, again, definitely makes me think of, Roman times. I think elephants are used in that. You may think of India, but this place definitely doesn't make me think of India. So yeah. But yeah, that's a pretty fun thing to see. Could be a very fun class. Maybe it's an armored riding class like Great Knight. Maybe it's a lot better than Great Knight. You shall see. Anyway, this is obviously worth mentioning its own section, why the Rider returns, because Theodora certifies for it. Yeah, this is a big deal because Wyvern Rider was the best class in Three Houses bar none. Easy to get into, very powerful stat-wise, very powerful growth-wise. It could fly, it could dismount to its bow weakness, it could dismount and then mount on the same turn, so you still don't lose the movement. Yeah, it was overpowered. Definitely one of the things that made Three Houses the way it was. Kanto, I think, was also one of the big things about it too. Kanto could very well be returning this game as well, so yeah. Especially if it's, the full move Kanto that we got to see in Three Houses as well, so yeah. So again, we'll see this class return, and we'll see if it's just as broken as it was in Three Houses. Anyway, as to some other returning classes, we do see a Brawler, but one thing my friend mentioned to me a few bits ago is Pugilist. This could be what the Brawler class is now called, and could also suggest that, yeah, maybe the class isn't gender locked anymore, because it's kind of weird. Brawl and Grappler and almost all male only classes, so yeah. So that's a thing. So yeah, does also, of course, does show that, Fist weapons will be returning as well, and gauntlets as well, so that's pretty neat as well. Then after that, there's an Armor Knight getting killed by Sirocco's magic. Armor Knights are really bad in Three Houses, outside of the fact that you could certify for Armor Knight to get 3 to 12 defense for free, because they had no movement, Fortress Sight gave no strength as a modifier, why? And yeah, they had a lot of defense, but magic would come in and destroy them. They could double, obviously, because of the bad speed penalty. Yeah, they weren't great. And Great Knight was a really bad class. One of the worst classes of Three Houses, to be honest, because it was way too hard to certify for, and the payoff was not even better than Paladin. It has one strength modifier, Paladin's 2, so yeah, I don't know what they were thinking. Anyway, so we'll see how good Armor Knight are in this game. I'm not expecting much considering, what Three Houses decided to do with them, but we'll see. And then, yeah, we also see Kai as a Cavalier. I believe this is when he uses his Blazer attack. So again, probably suggests that Cav is the intermediate class and Flying or Near Strider is an advanced class potentially. So that's interesting. Anyway, so Battalions and Gambit's return. This is something I wasn't expecting, but yeah, you'll see this in gameplay. Theodora uses a Gambit in the first trailer, and Authority is a rank in this game. I believe it showed on someone's level up screen, so yeah. That's interesting, because again, you'd think that, with the Blaze Arts, you wouldn't need Battalion of Gambits as well on top of that. But I can see why. There's no emblem rings in this game, so then the battalions are your way of boosting your stats. So that's a way. And of course, yeah, doesn't hurt to, have those gambits to rile enemies potentially. They may not even rile enemies in this game, that's a potential thing, but I would be surprised about that. And of course, yeah, monsters in this game, so having gambits to deal with them could also be very important. It's very interesting to think about, so yeah. But anyway, other than that, Weapon Durability and Covenant's return. This is seen very clearly with Ursa's gameplay when she's using Deadeye with the longbow. So yeah, just like Three Houses, and yeah, probably just like Three Houses, you'd be able to repair weapons too. So yeah, and again, I don't mind that. Again, Covenants are cool in Three Houses for the most part. They definitely made certain characters really fun to use. So yeah. So again, we'll see, how they implemented stuff like that, how will Covenants work with characters too, which ones will they be able to learn and stuff like that, so yeah. Anyway, and yeah, again, weapons can probably be repaired. I think that's likely as well. But anyway, now we get to see the dungeon exploration. Something that we haven't seen since Echoes. And yeah, they show Leda exploring, but not Ishmael, which again, very confuses me, because, you know, really confuses me because, yeah, again, Ishmael's obviously the avatar character, obviously, so yeah. But anyway, and yeah, she's showing, you know, opening a chest. Considering how large this whole map is, I can definitely see, you know, dungeon exploration being like a part of it to maybe make it interesting. Again, I kind of appreciate this. Again, it's not just, you know, exploring the same monastery the whole game. It does, you know, give you more areas to potentially explore and maybe find treasures as well. So yeah, so that's pretty cool. We'll see how it's implemented, obviously, which we'll talk about in a bit. Anyway, so that, let's talk a bit more about blaze arts. So yeah, the new mechanic the main characters can use. They cost HP to use and likely tied to a meter similar to the engage meter. You can see a meter next to the character's info on the top left of the screen before you move them. And yeah, it also shows when using Leda's Song of Beast, increases blaze by 4, whatever that means. Could this be like another meter? Could it be like a cooldown or something like that? Hard to say. But yeah, these are very interesting mechanics, I must admit. It'll definitely make using each lord very interesting too. And the fun might not stop there. Other characters have a different looking meter. Does suggest they won't have blaze arts. Maybe they'll have something different, but we'll see what that is. We don't really know. So yeah. So yeah. Again, this is definitely something I'm very interested in. It'll be interesting to learn obviously more about it. Because yeah, we do get to see, you know, quite a few different use of this. Like again, they do remind me of engage attacks sometimes, like the Kai in Dietrich's case, even Theodora. Now, obviously, Leda has her own unique spin on it with all the songs she's able to play, so yeah. Anyway, after that, obviously with the way I'm talking, yeah, as you can probably tell, this game is very free houses coded. Has a lot of free house mechanics, of course, on the medium ones, obviously. Monastery mechanics, you're given some limited time, it showed that in the trailer as well. Exploration, obviously, in the Hope world. You can train ranks, obviously, as well. It could work very differently in this game, though, because remember, even though, again, this game has treehouse mechanics, this is not in a monastery. This is obviously like a fighting tournament and stuff like that, so yeah. So again, how you raise rank, though, could be very, very different. It could also be tied to the world map once again, so yeah. And yeah, motivations even in this game, too. It shows Kai needing to spend, I believe, 1 motivation to do his mounting training or riding training earlier, so yeah. That's interesting too as well, so yeah. Again, definitely very Three Houses coded this game. This game is going to play a lot like Three Houses, for better and worse, as we might talk about later, but anyway. After that, Dietrich shows a battle on the world map against the wolf, and yeah, that really shows that monster type that is going to return. The wolves seem like a pretty small monster type enemy to me. It could very well be like one of those big wolves in Free House as well. And yeah, he levels up, and it actually shows something kind of interesting. His ranks increase. It shows his sword rank going up when he's getting the EXP, but also a foot icon as well, which suggests to me that the infantry movement might have its own rank, like riding and flying. And yeah, this even shows up when Kai levels up when he uses his blaze art, but he's on a mountain class, so I suspect this might be because of the blaze art. He dismounts when he uses it, so yeah. That's interesting. I don't know if the infantry would be its own rank as well, alongside, you know, riding, flying, and armor. That's interesting. Like I said, I don't know what like skills that could unlock, but of course, yeah, it would make sense that it would be needed to unlock. It makes sense that it'd be needed to unlock, you know, foot classes like Swordmaster, Warlock, Warrior, stuff like that. So yeah. Anyway, other than that, so in the dungeon exploration, we saw Leda picking up a weapon called the Veronqui. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. It has a curse stat of 2, Not too sure what this could be for, but my guess is ailments. Maybe it like, you know, maybe a higher curse, that means better chance of ailments or something like that, or more severe ailments, something like that. This weapon also shows that combats can be tied to weapons. I believe it has like a prune combat art. Heroes Rex work like this at Free Houses too, so I guess I'm not too surprised. Like, yeah, of course, for example, we talked about the Lancer Rune a little bit earlier. You need the Gautier Crest, and then you'll be able to use Rune Sky. Again, could be similar, but it's not just tied to Heroes Relics this time around with the combats. That Deadeye that Ursula's using too could be tied to Lompo as well. That's another thing I said too. But anyway. And yeah, another thing that this weapon shows is that weapons can have multiple rank requirements. Apparently, from what I remember, it needs a B rank in swords and a C rank in axes. Kind of strange for a sword, but yeah. It's interesting. It will make, you know, hunting down specific weapons a bit more interesting. And maybe it'll make the Heroes Relics, if there are, or similar weapons, should we say, a little bit more challenging to get to. Remember that Heroes Relics and Free Houses only need E rank, so anyone could use them if they so wish, so yeah. And yeah, not a bad idea too, considering that, yeah, in my playthrough, we were like swimming in the Umbral still, but anyway. So, the feeling I get with this game is that it feels very engaged as well. One way is the battle UI and the battle transitions. Again, for some reason, it feels very much like engaged. Like, you got to see like the character portrait in the bottom left, kind of like, and they're pretty big looking too, kind of like, you know, the live 3D models that Free Houses has. And then, yeah, when it transitions into battle, it feels a lot like Engage as well, much more than Free Houses. And yeah, even like some of the battle animations running Free Houses too, like, yeah, when Sirocco is killing the Armor Knight in his gameplay, the Armor Knight tumbling over looked exactly like Engage to me. So yeah, it's kind of interesting. It does make you question who actually is making this game. Once again, like I was talking about in the first video I did. It does say IS is working on it. I have no idea if Koei Tecmo is involved in any way, shape, or form. So yeah, you'd think they would be, because again, this is a Free Houses sequel, but again, we don't know for certain. So yeah. But anyway, so yeah, I mentioned this a little bit ago, but skills and crests are on the bottom left of the powerful class. This is how we learned that Ursula has the crest of the beast and Kai has 2 crests. So yeah, that's what they show. That does make me wonder what, you know, the crests are going to be used for as well. So yeah. So yeah. Yes, again, they just kind of activate it randomly in Free Houses. I wonder if there'll be more to them than that. It would be pretty neat, I must admit. But anyway, something else that Ursula's combat for the class shows is that the bow distance penalty for Free Houses seems to return as well, because it shows the bow icon and then like an exclamation mark next to it. So yeah, this is a neat mechanic of Free Houses where, yeah, the longer distance you shoot with the bow, the more accuracy penalties it has. And then manning mode, this is actually enhanced even more for both you and the enemy actually. So yeah, that meant that, you know, hit plus 20 was basically a must-have skill on archers as well. So yeah, it's interesting that it's returning too. It does also make me think that, you know, certain classes, like, you know, Archer, Sniper, and Bone Knight will have extra bone range on their side as well. So yeah. And let's talk a little bit about magic. So, considering this is a Free Houses sequel, I can definitely see it working like Free Houses. Like, yeah, again, you have a certain amount of spells, and then, yeah, other than that, they recharge. But the thing about this, though, is that Sirocco's Thunder has like 16 uses, which is a lot more than what Thunder had in Free Houses. So yeah, it makes me think that, yeah, maybe magic could work a little bit differently. Of course, in Echoes, it was tied to HP, but it definitely doesn't seem that way in this game, so yeah. And yeah, of course, another thing that's worth knowing is that Thunder has 2 range, it was 3 range in Engage, so yeah. So it's kind of nice to show that, yeah, again, it works more like Free Houses, I guess. But anyway, that's everyone the gameplay. Overall, that was a lot, but anyway. So now we go on to the miscellaneous stuff. I also have some extra speculation that I couldn't fit in as well here. And yeah, I might have mentioned a few things about this earlier, but anyway. So, of course, one of the big things we really wanted to know was the release date, and we got it. September 17th. Not the best date though, and there's one reason why. It's the same frickin' day as Sky SC's remake. So yeah, if you want to play both games, well, I guess you'll shall luck. Yeah, I can't believe they did that. I know that, GTA 6 is, coming soon. No one wants to compete with that on the same month, except for Godzilla Barbie game, funny enough. But yeah, again, kind of sucks though, because again, both games do appeal to a very similar demographic. And again, it could definitely hurt Sky's sales as well, unless, you buy both of them. Which I guess you could. And of course, like I mentioned before, this is 8 months since the first reveal trailer, and actually, the game's gonna release roughly 1 year after the first reveal trailer too. Again, I don't know why there's like no info on this game for so long, but I mean, it means there's a lot to talk about now, so I guess that's fun. So something interesting about this game too, and you'll notice this a lot if you play Engage, is that this game goes back to using 2D portraits, like tree houses, and even animating cutscenes. They actually look really good, to be honest. Again, character design in general, I'm really digging. Like, yeah, it looks like tree houses, but at the same time, it has its own like charm to it as well. So yeah, I'm definitely a fan of this. Again, I do think that we getting art style like this just because I felt like people are scared of Engage's art style and what it looked like, even though I think I really like what Engage looked like, so yeah. So I guess it does make sense they do something like this, so yeah. And yeah, I do like the 2D portraits as well. Definitely a whole mock-off farm on that potential, so it's kind of with that Engage, like had nothing to do with that, but anyway. So yeah, now let's go to some extra speculation I couldn't fit in anywhere else. So units seem tied to one of the 4 characters, and yeah, I mentioned this before that yeah, they could end up fighting each other in later parts of the game. Again, Three Houses did this, that's like the main reason why I think it's gonna happen here, so yeah. There's gonna be like a clash of ideas at some point, and yeah, they're gonna have to fight. There could also be like a battle where, like the Battle of the Eagle Lion when they all fight each other. That could also be a thing as well. Interesting note though, the gameplay with Kai on his new class, the Pioneer Rider, actually shows him and Leather on the same map as allies, which is kind of weird. Could be like a special thing, maybe something early on, hard to say. So, another thing I'm speculating is that yeah, getting the wish on the heroic games could be in a part 1, and part 2 is on the route split truly begins. Again, Three Houses is very much like this, so I wouldn't be surprised if, this game was like that as well, so yeah. And I do think that, yeah, again, there could be a time skip. I don't think there will be, but again, the game will be, broken up into 2 parts, I feel like. Again, that makes like the most sense to me, so yeah. So that's why I'm kind of thinking that. And again, yeah, we'll see what, of course, this could also be tied to, what the Divine Sovereign thinks as well. Again, we don't really know anything about him, so yeah. Now let's go to some criticism. So, I didn't even talk about the world map, did I? Let me do that. So yeah, so the world map, there's like a screenshot. The intro is like in the middle of it. There's a lot of activities. So, and yeah, it's interesting that this game is a world map. Three Houses didn't have one, but like most other foreign games too. Like most other foreign games do like Awakening, Echoes, Sacred Stones. Yeah, a lot, and even Engage at the world map too. So it's kind of interesting that this game has it. And yeah, like I said, this screenshot is like a shit ton of activities, to be honest. So yeah, so I do wonder what that's all about. I do think that, yeah, possibly the world map is a way to use up your time as well. Like, go to certain places, going to use up a bit of your hours that it showed as well. And then, of course, yeah, to maximize that, you want to, try to explore as many areas as you can. I do think this will be, more lenient on the easier difficulties as well. But, of course, this makes me think of one criticism. It's a cool idea, but I do wonder if this will bloat the game too much. Of course, Three Houses had the problem where, the monastery took up so much of the gameplay that, again, it just kind of dragged and became very boring in the end, so yeah. That's something I'm fearing with this game too. Like, yeah, this world map is the and all, but it could be too much, and then it could bloat the game as a result. Again, this game just seems very big in general, so yeah, it could be very tiring to try and complete all 4 routes of this. That's if there is 4 routes. There could very well be more. Of course, yeah, I think another issue of this game is complexity. Because, yeah, there's so much in this game. It's not just taking things from Free House, but even engage as well. So, again, there could be a lot to think about. Again, we'll see how it goes. Again, this game could take a long time to figure out as well. Free House is kind of like that as well. Like, it took a while to, learn everything about that game, but we'll see. It does, make me fear what, maddening mode for the first time is going to be like, but we'll see, I guess. But yeah. But again, I do think that, yeah, those are probably going to be some of the main issues at the moment with Portuguese Eve. So, yeah, those are just some things to keep in mind. We'll see if, yeah, of course, load and complexity are definitely stuff I could blame Free Houses for as well as particular criticisms. So, yeah, we'll see if, this game can, maybe, rectify that a little bit. I don't think it'll completely go away, but we shall see. Yeah, another criticism is the story. Considering that, again, this is going to be, a route split game, it definitely feels like. I can definitely see the story being unfocused because the focus on, 4 characters, making sure that each of them gets a bit of spotlight. Again, Free House had the problem where, the game was basically designed around, either God and Dimitri, so Cord was left hung out to dry, basically. He basically amounted to basically nothing, so yeah. This game, though, I don't think is doing that. Again, each character seems somewhat important at the moment. Of course, some characters are probably going to be more important than others, but we'll see how that goes. It kind of depends on, how the plot, shapes up. But again, yeah, we'll see, Again, Farm hasn't had a very good track record with its plots as of recently, so again, we'll see how things go, obviously. Especially when it comes to games of route splits too, because, yeah, there's always some kind of problems that people like to talk about, so yeah. Anyway, I do think that, though, even if the story isn't that good, I do think the characters might be the best part of the plot. Again, characters are probably going to have supports, they're probably going to have in-depth backstories like a Free Houses. There's probably going to be a lot of ways to interact with them too, so yeah, I do think that, yeah, again, characters will be probably the best part of this plot once again. And that's been the case with, a lot of foreign games up to this point, so yeah. Anyway. So this is a bit of a prediction, but I think other than Sophus, I don't think characters from Free House will return. Of course, I was kind of contradicting myself there with Ishmael maybe being Lilith. But again, I don't really think we're going to see too many characters from Free House returning. Again, most of them, if this game takes us 200 years off, most are going to be dead. So, yeah. So again, I think that's one reason why, but of course, there can definitely be characters who are connected to Free House's characters. Like we told about Ursula and Dietrich, so yeah. So we'll see. I mean, that's how far it goes. Again, it's kind of interesting thinking about how this game will be, tied to Free Houses as well. So yeah. So there's certainly a lot to think about in that regard. And of course, the final thing I want to talk about is New Game Plus might return. Again, with this having 4 routes and being seemingly large game with a lot of things to do, I definitely see that being the case. And also, yeah, the rank system, the weapon rank system, kind of ties nicely to New Game Plus as well, because you obviously start the game with those ranks already raised. So yeah, I think that's one reason why I can see it returning. It also, make getting up to the equivalent of High Professor rank much easier as well. Whether that will be, but we'll see. And then that means, more room to mess around with things, which is always fun. And of course, Manning mode. Manning mode should be the highest difficulty. Wherever it'll be in the game at launch, we shall see. I really hope for those, because, again, Free Houses hard mode couldn't carry as a hard difficulty, and then Manning mode obviously came along. It's the way to play Farm with Free Houses in my mind now. Hard is just way too easy. So, Manning, it's frustrating. And I hope that, this game doesn't have some of those frustrating mechanics like the ambush spawns and the maps being a slog to play. So, yeah, we'll see. We'll see about that. But again, yeah, I do think that this game will have a high difficulty at some point. And of course, yeah, the other thing to think about too is, yeah, what is the future of this game going to be like? Of course, it's going to get DLC, I already know that. Not really sure what that's going to cover, but we shall see. Most likely, it's going to probably introduce a new faction of characters, and then, yeah, you're going to be able to recruit them yourselves, so yeah. So, yeah, I think, yeah, that's made everyone talk about, yeah, that was a lot. I can talk about Fire Emblem a long time, and this is a very good showcase, so yeah. So yeah, that's everything I want to talk about with Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave. The fortunes are certainly weaving. So yeah, as for how I'll cover this game, I still don't feel confident, getting a capture card and recording. Especially because this is a Switch 2 game, so yeah. I feel more comfortable if it's just a Switch 1 game. That's what I would test a capture card on, but not the Switch 2. It is kind of, our console, it's not just mine, so yeah. So that's how I don't want to do that. But again, just like with Engage, I don't mind, going through the game a couple of times, then doing a review video on it, talking about my thoughts on it. Considering this is like an hour-long video, oh boy, the review could be even longer than that. So yeah. And then yeah, if I'm feeling up to it, maybe I'll do character videos again, like I did with Engage as well. We shall see. But sadly though, I'm actually kind of excited to be honest. I think one thing that really helped was the Free House Mining mode playthrough I did. It definitely made me think, I'm now like razor sharp on Free Houses and its mechanics now. I feel a lot more sharper when compared to when I talked about this game 8 months ago, so yeah. So again, now I'm, really anticipating, really want to see, how this game improves on Free Houses gameplay and potentially plot as well. So yeah, I'm very curious about all that. So yeah, yeah, this is a game I'm definitely looking forward to, as you can probably tell. So yeah, it's gonna be a very fun one to think about as well. But anyway, so with that done, yeah, let's end this very long video now. So yeah, I hope you look forward to what I have in store next. And yeah, most likely, now that I got this very long video on, if there is like information worth sharing about Fortune's Sleep, I'll probably make some video posts about it. Kind of like what I did in Engage once again. So we shall see once again. So yeah, look forward to whatever else I have in store next, and I'll see you guys again for